Good morning this Wednesday morning, where we're going to be talking about the importance of past and future lives. 2 weeks ago, I spoke about past lives. Last week, I talked about how there are future lives. The reality is, if your consciousness can expand into the future, you can see, experience your future lives as well. Not everybody can seem to do that because we tend to think linearly in this lifetime or this space where we're in. And so it's easier for people to look at past lives. And in the beginning, when people first started working with past lives, that's what they did, past lives. We just don't call them lives, exploring lives. We talk about past lives because most people can find it easy to look in past lives, and mostly that we can experience that. But there is also future lives. And there are times when I have gone ahead personally and looked at future lives to see how it relates or formulates into the storyline that I'm working on. And I explained one of the ones with about my back and money in last week's session on future lives. But what's the importance of all these lives? And as I mentioned 2 weeks ago, so often we're doing lifetime after lifetime after lifetime, just like a little squirrel in a cage. And often it's the same thing over and over and over. Maybe a little bit of a different look here or a different look there, but it's basically the same thing. So how come that happens? And that is because the soul, we have to think of the soul. The soul is the essence of you that travels in all these different time periods and in these different ways. And it's easier for us because we kind of always, be everywhere at one time when we're in a body like this. And so it's easier for us to kind of see them in time sequence in one or the other following. Now, if you have a life and you make a decision in that life, a strong decision. We make thousands of decisions all the time, but I'm talking about the big ones. When something occurs and we really make a big decision. I know often when I'm doing clearing work in particular these days, and I look at an Akashic record and I can see the decision that they made or an action that they made that has stayed with them, that they don't want to look at because maybe they're embarrassed, maybe they feel guilty, maybe all of those kind of feelings, that they just don't want to see that, so they don't ever look at it one way or another. And so those are the real heavy decisions. But there's still something in a lifetime when we come to the end of the life, is the emotion, the guilt is strong, the regret is strong, and sometimes strong emotions like anger, jealousy, things like that. There's a strong emotion. And if we haven't cleared those in the life that we've been in, the soul takes it with us. It just follows it. And so that's why we get a repeated time over and over and over again based on the soul element, what the soul is experiencing. Because it hasn't got to the point to find the forgiveness of the self to let it go. And so why so many of us, myself included, and many people that I know, start on an inward journey to begin to figure out who we really are. And begin to run into these things that we have locked away sometimes in little places within us. And those little places, if we track it back, usually relate to another life. And usually in our case, more into a past life than a future life. Now, and it doesn't mean that it wouldn't be happening in a future life either. It's just we're perception, but it's easy to think about as a past life. Now, one of the things when I was first beginning to work with energy and clearing and how to deal with different things, one of the things that I found was that guilt was a very, very difficult energy to shift. It was like sticky oil. You know how oil sticks and, seems to get in hair or anything, and it just is yucky. Until I realized that when I put universal love force to it, it dissolved. The next one that I found was a little difficult in clearing was regret. You regret about things that are not done that you wish you'd done, things not said that you wish you had said. So you don't really maybe feel guilty about it, but you feel regretful. You feel regretful that you didn't follow maybe A road rather than B road or whatever, but it stayed with you. You often thought, well, I wonder what would happen if I made that different decision. So that when we get to the end of any particular life, all these decisions that we've made, all these experiences we've had over the whole time of the life is still very, very much there. And it's like, this is why when I'm doing a regression, I usually say that what we're going to do is work to see what you really need to let go of, because no doubt if you're letting it go in this lifetime, it'll be in your body this life. And it always is. We always find it after to clear from there too, to make it a sort of a healing experience rather than just a fact-finding, maybe fun experience. And even really great lives, even lives we've had that have, you know, if we don't always go for looking for them because they're not good. We go looking for them sometimes because we want to know when we were great, when we had everything together. And even then, sometimes we'll find these little things, little regrets, little emotions that weren't really let go of. So there's always something that we can take and let go of. You don't want to keep repeating, at least I don't think you do, over and over again, lifetime after lifetime after lifetime, based on the same decisions that you made millennia ago. Sometimes it's hard to really believe how long ago some of the decisions that are made. I talk often about the transformation work I do. I touch on it. I haven't really talked about it as yet. And what I find interesting is if a person does enough of the transformations, it doesn't usually show up in the first few, you might say, sittings or appointments, because we've got a lot to do, a lot. It's like clearing mega gravel from a driveway. There's lots of little pieces to do when we first start. But after a while, there's, you might want to say, fewer rocks, but bigger ones, older ones, more established ones. And yet I find that people who really want to clear and you really want to be able to function and work within their lives really accurately, when we get to those points, it doesn't take nearly as long to clear, but the importance of what we're clearing is really fine. Now, all of those things, whether we could look at them as blocks or what I'd say, well, we're clearing these blocks. All of these blocks have had other lifetime experiences as well. The decisions that are made, the vows that are made, the oaths that are made that you make in another time and place. A very common one is an oath of allegiance, because in Europe in particular, there were mega wars. I know because I've seen so many of them, is that, and what would do, these young men would leave their farms and go off and become part of an army, and they'd swear allegiance to the general. Never usually to the cause, but to the general. So what happens with that is that there then comes a tendency to give up your power to the person in authority, because you've made an oath to the general, which is the person in authority. Now, the odd time it has been to the actual person, and then that person is showing up in this life, then that person, the same thing happens, and they give their authority, of personal authority, to them. So we forget that these oaths and vows are usually religious. I find a lot when young girls used to go into the monasteries and they had to make all sorts of vows to obey the church, which again is giving up your authority. Vow to the Mother Superior. Vow of poverty often would show up if we're looking at certain topics. So these things show up at different times. But again, it tends to be in the oaths and the vows in particular, is that giving up authority or giving up a sense of self. Like, because you want to be you want to help everybody. So you make a decision, or you make an oath, you should say, to or a vow that you are not going to own anything, you're going to help people, you're going to heal people. One story I remember very well was for a gentleman, actually, and in this past life, he had been a brown monk, and they were the ones that wandered from village to village in England, helping people where they could, and depended on the villagers to feed them and things like that. You could almost say it was very similar to the Buddhists have begging bowls for people to help support them in their spiritual journey. But this is back a long time. We don't tend to do it quite like that anymore. But if you have done a vow similar to that, no matter what you do, you won't hold on to money, number one. Even if you're not coming to me to look about why I'm not holding on to money, you're not going to. Number two, you feel that you have to give yourself to everybody else. Because that vow that you made, so maybe many, many, many lifetimes ago, because lives are not chronological. And that's another thing people don't understand. That's why we can have future lives. And I used to spend time thinking, I wonder where I want to be born next. I wonder what era. Well, I don't remember too much of the future yet, and it's because it's consistently changing anyway. But the reality, so where do I want to go? Is there a time period I'd like to go? Things like that was my entertainment, self-entertainment for a wee while, not so much anymore. But it's like, what is it that you're wanting to think about, and what you're wanting to do is you've got to look at your life. You've got to take a look inside. What is being outpictured? Now, another thing that I teach a lot of is if anything upsets you on the outside, it could be the meaning of the word, and I did do a video on about the power of words and what I call word chains, and you could always look up that, and I may repeat that again somewhere soon. But there is one out there that will tell you how important it is not to be charged by a word, but also by circumstances, other people's behavior. You know how all of a sudden you'll feel angry at something or upset by something, and you don't really know why. Usually that means there has been another situation which has upset you, and consequently you are responding to that. So again, that is something unresolved within you. We want easy lives. We want life to be easy, no matter what is occurring outside. There's a lot occurring outside of us right now. A lot of our controls are taken away. A lot of a sense of what we can just go and do. And the ease of travel or the ease of meeting people is all being sort of gone right now. Coming back, but then gone again. Threats of it going more. But the key is to be free on the inside. To know who you are no matter what. To know what you stand for. To know what you don't stand for, to make sure that things are not triggering you from another time and another place where you made decisions about who you were or what you were. And this is the true importance of your past and future lives, is to clear the belief structures that you have inside that were created in another time. Plus, the other importance is the death process. We are in a physical body that we will leave one day. Most of us do not know how long that is. It could be any time. As you get older and older, you get looking at that closer and closer. So you want to have the essence of you as clear as possible when it's time to make that transition. Now, based on the experience that I had with past lives, I know that when the time comes for you to leave this body, that either someone who has gone before you, or a light, or a master teacher, like a very strong entity, comes to you. So you're not really alone in that time period, probably not as alone as you were being born. And consequently, it is really important to be able to embrace what we call the light. It is really important to be able to surrender to that process. Now, if you have a strong mind who wants to be in control of everything in this life now, what do you think happens when time comes and you have to let everything go? So it's practice about letting go and just be what we call being. It's what I found when I went back to look at where the souls first come from. And I was surprised to find it was really beingness. We are beings on a journey of exploration of this huge, magnificent universe that goes on and on and on with many planets and many dimensions. But we want to be able to surrender to that. Now, I was taught, I think through a book, but I'm not sure where I actually heard this the first time. And it was called Initiation at Death. And when I was reading, because I was very curious about death, I wanted to find, I was a person that always read a map when I went anywhere because I wanted to know where I was. I think you would call that a controller. Now, as the years went by, I very seldom use a map. I kind of just, oh, well, it'll work out now. But anyway, what happened? I wanted to find out what was going to happen. What was going to happen to me? I grew up as a child born of older parents. So I had a lot of older aunts and uncles who passed on. And I wondered what happens. And part of the issue was I didn't realize I was psychic. So I kind of knew they weren't dead, but they weren't here. So it was kind of like I couldn't put those things together. So as I got older, I wanted to figure out. So I kind of did some study and books and things like that and to add to my knowledge. Past life work really helped me understand a lot more. But consequently, what I want you to be aware of is that whole element of the beingness of who we are and being able to surrender. Because if you're going to have the initiation at the moment of death, doesn't matter what you've done, if you can let go and move into that loving light, which is all forgiving, then everything is forgiven and you're willing to surrender everything, at that moment, you will go right into the light because you've embraced it. But many of us, we question it. It took me a long time just here in this world practicing bringing that light, which is love, into me. Allowing myself to be comfortable with that love. And I think maybe that's why I can teach it, is because it took me a long, long time to figure out, I knew I had to have it inside, but to allow it in and hit all my blocks and things that I had, because I was pretty fragmented based on the experiences of my childhood, to allow that until finally I began to integrate the internal part of me, and it was easier to allow the love in, which is, and the exercise that I use for my clients, I use a color to help do that. But sometimes it takes them several times before they actually really get it, that there's love everywhere, in everything. And so why, when I look at the title of this talk today, the importance of past and future lives, is because we are preparing for that moment of leaving this body. We are preparing to surrender to the light. We are preparing to accept love, 100%, the universal love of this planet. Because then we can transcend to where we need to be. Maybe to learn more, maybe to go have some fun because it hasn't been very much fun, maybe to choose another life very quickly, maybe to wait for a long time. It's all dependent on many, many different things. But the key is, it's not just this moment. There's been many lifetimes, both past, future, present, could be concurrent. I've had people say to me when they've come out of regression in a workshop, but I was born before I was alive, while I was still alive. And I said, yeah, because you can do that. It's just concurrent lives. We don't talk a lot about that either. So there's past, present, and future lives, all showing us who we are, all giving us an opportunity to allow the soul to clear and be at one with the love energy that is in this planet. I don't know what more else I can say, because the love is where we're heading. The love is where we're wanting to go. The love is bringing us and will bring us always support and things that we desire and want, but we just have to know how to utilize it. So I want you to have a wonderful, wonderful week until next Wednesday, when I'll come back again with another Norma Talks. And also take a look on my YouTube channel for the my Sunday Thought. I put a Sunday Thought, which I cover all sorts of little topics for just a short while. I thank you. If you like what you're hearing, please press like. If you haven't subscribed, please subscribe. I appreciate that. And in the meantime, remember, you can always connect me through my website, www.normacowie.com. Bless your hearts. Have a good week. Bye for now.